let's stop you from making these mistakes and get you to play like you're a seasoned veteran, just like this. Firstly, before even dipping your toes into combat, you gotta prepare yourself for the hunt. Every hunter does this, and we very rarely go out on a hunt before preparing ourselves. Only if you know you're gonna completely destroy a monster without the preparations, and you're an absolute pro. However, for you new players, and even us veterans, we still prepare ourselves for any hunt, and we start that by having a meal. Eating a meal can increase your health and stamina to the max. You gotta fill your hunter's empty stomach so that they are fighting at their full potential. Meals can also provide buffs like increasing your attack or defense, but there's also unique buffs that some meals can give you. This is normally done by choosing specific ingredients when preparing the meal. Be sure to carefully take a look at what ingredients are used so that they can give you whatever buff that you want. These food buffs do not last forever, so keep your eyes out on when your food buffs run out. Next is to stock yourself on items. There's tons of items that can be used to help you on your hunts, and they should be kept in your inventory so that you can use them while you're out and about. The most important items to keep in your inventory are potions, mega potions, herbs, and honey. Potions and mega potions are obviously there to heal you, but the herbs and honey are there so that if you run out of potions, you can craft more on the fly, rather than having to go back to camp and restock from your item box. That's if you have any. If you don't have any potions, then you can buy some or craft your own. Also, if you haven't noticed, you do have a limited amount of items you can carry, which is why having the herbs and honey on you basically gives you more than the limited amount. Although, thanks to the default item wheel, you won't be able to craft more potions, and you have to manually craft them. But there's a better way, which I'll talk about later. There are other useful items that you might want in your inventory, so look around and see what can help you with your hunts. Items such as shock or pitfall traps are great to temporarily stop a monster in their tracks. The Nullberry is another one that's really good for removing any debuffs that a monster has applied to you, like Water Blight or Fire Blight. You might have noticed whenever you're hunting with other players that they have brought barrel bombs with them, which is great to deal a good amount of damage to a sleeping monster. Another reason why players do that is because any first hit that is done on a sleeping monster deals more damage than usual. Okay, you've got your items and you've eaten your meal, let's start hunting. There's a couple of ways to start fighting against any monster. Depending on your weapon, you can attack from your mount either from close or far range. But to be honest, I wouldn't do that. There's a better way to start a fight, and that's by doing the dismount attack. Launching off your mount, you can perform an aerial attack against the monster. The reason why this is better is because you get the chance to mount on the monster. You can also simply jump off your mount and do an aerial attack instead of the dismount attack, which can also result in the chance of mounting on the monster. Doing any aerial attack, whether it be jumping off a ledge or your mount, you can do mounting damage on a monster, which will eventually result in mounting the monster. Basically, think as if there's an invisible mountain bar that grows the more you mount onto a monster. Every time you do an aerial attack, that bar goes down, and when it depletes, you can mount the monster. The more you mount, the harder it is to mount again. Once mounted, the monster will try to throw you off by reducing your stamina bar. Your goal, while mounted, is to knock down the monster by opening a wound and attacking it with your weapon. Wounds can be opened in a couple of ways while mounted. Pressing the triangle or Y button will perform a heavy knife attack, whereas pressing the circle or B button will do a light knife attack. These two knife attacks are really good for opening up a wound. You can perform your weapon attack as well, but it's a bit longer to do that. Once a wound has been created, perform your weapon attack to knock down the monster. As I said before, the monster will try to knock you off by draining your stamina, and it can be seen when your screen starts to darken, but there's a few ways to avoid that. You can either hold down the brace button to reduce the amount of stamina being drained, or you can move to another location on the monster's body by simply moving the character. I tend to always move my character so that I can continue to create more wounds. By the way, you can use mounting as a chance to create wounds on the monster, so be sure to keep that in mind. Now that you've either knocked down the monster or you've drawn your weapon, what do you do now? You can totally run away in fear of losing your life because you're gonna fight something that looks like it can one punch you to death. Of course, that's the "what the hell are you doing? Why did you even get the game?" approach. But for us hunters, we stay fighting. To start fighting, you should do your weapons openers. Every weapon has their own openers, so it's actually best to know how your weapon works beforehand. Since I'm not gonna say every single weapons opener, all I can say is to watch guides on how to use specific weapons. Weapon guides found on YouTube really help with quickly learning how a weapon works. You can try to learn them yourself by heading into the training area, but watching those guides can give you further info about a weapon that you might not even know about. There's tons of people who have made guides already, and I will be doing that as well. So if you want to see mine, be sure to subscribe because they will be coming, or they might already be here by the time you're watching this video. I was just waiting the full game to come out. I didn't want the beta info to be on the bottom of the screen. Anyways, when you're in combat, you're gonna do a mix of jabs, tiny combos, counters, blocks, and more, to eventually find an opening to deal massive damage. I really do recommend doing some hit and run attacks and tiny combos at the start of a hunt, because the monster is quite aggressive and blindly swinging at the monster could easily get you killed. The monster will eventually get tired and move slower than they normally would, giving you a better chance to do longer attack strings. You should be keeping an eye on the monster's attacks and movements, because after some time, you will be able to learn what attacks the monster will do, and how you can take advantage of it. So don't worry about dying a lot, just keep fighting it while learning its attack patterns. Also, since you've already noticed, there is no boss health bar, and the only way you can tell is by looking at their heartbeat at the bottom left of the screen, and eventually when they are close to dying, a skull will appear on the icon on the map, obviously meaning that it's going to die. Since I mentioned hit and run attacks, I should quickly talk about sheathing and unsheathing your weapon. Obviously, unsheathing your weapon allows you to attack, but if you want to use items, you have to sheath your weapon away. It's a pretty easy thing to learn, but when I started playing Monster Hunter, something about this confused me. It might be because whenever I needed to heal, I would see my hunter put the weapon away first before healing, which put me in horrible situations. What I like to do is manually sheath my weapon before using healing items, just so I can put some distance away from the monster first, and then choose to heal. Although if you get hit hard enough for your character to lay on the floor, you can just call your mount to pick you up and heal. It's actually better that way because the mount covers quite a bit of distance, and you get to use items while you're on the mount. By the way, that's another tip. If you do get knocked down hard enough for your character to be on the floor, choose when to get up, because you're actually invincible while laying on the floor, until your character automatically gets up. Speaking about being invincible, you can perform a dodge that makes you invincible for quite some time, and that's what we like to call the Superman dive. This can only be done when your weapon is sheathed and you're sprinting and dodging away from the monster. This dodge has more iframes than the usual dodge. Be sure to remember that you have this dodge because later on, it's going to save your life. I don't even know how many times it saved my life in the other Monster Hunter games. Also, the usual dodge is mostly used to reposition yourself. In my opinion, I rarely use it to actually dodge an attack on time. But there's two weapons that can do perfect dodges. I mentioned before that you're gonna do counters and blocks, but there's something else that the devs added to this version of Monster Hunter, and that's called offset attacks. Some weapons have a unique move called an offset attack. What this does is that it can allow you to knock down a monster when you time this move with the monster's attack, and you can perform a follow-up attack after it. This follow-up attack can't be done multiple times because that would make the game way too easy, but the offset can save your life when your only option is to do this move. The offset attack is really useful but hard to pull off because you need to time yourself with the monster's attack. However, most offset attacks can be held, meaning that you can choose when to let loose this attack, which helps a tiny bit to time it just right. Some weapons can also allow you to perform perfect guards, and if you block enough hits, you'll perform the power clash. All you have to do in this mini cutscene is to spam your triangle or Y button to push back the monster. Depending on the weapon, the power clash can give you a shortcut to some attacks. Then you have the bow and dual blades, which can't do perfect guards or offsets, but they do have perfect evading. This is pretty self-explanatory. When you dodge on time, you can completely avoid taking damage and it replays your stamina. There is a bit more to it than just that, but that's worthy of a separate video for those weapons. Now I'm sure you know everything about the focus mode and how it can help you aim your attacks and do focus strikes. I'll be surprised if you're not doing that, especially the greatsword users. We'll never have to whiff our true charge slash anymore, unless you're really bad at aiming. However, focus mode is actually really good for closing the distance between you and the monster. Take a look at this. When I'm doing the basic true charge slash combo with the greatsword, I don't reach the target. However, if I do that same combo with focus mode on, I reach the target. Some weapons gain the extra reach with focus mode, so I just say just use focus mode a lot. So now you're taking damage from the monster and you want to heal yourself. There's two ways of doing that. You can either do the long way of scrolling through the item bar and get potentially hit because you aren't looking at the monster, or you can use the item wheel. I use the wheel much more, but it doesn't mean that the bar is completely useless. The bar has every usable item in your item pouch, such as traps, bombs, and more. You can also scroll through the bar more quickly by pressing these buttons. I tend to leave an item that I know I'll use in the bar instead of an item that I can use on the wheel. That way it's easier for me to use the item rather than trying to find it in the bar. By the way, the default wheel is simple and kinda limited with your options. Even though it automatically chooses the best healing options, it won't allow you to create more potions when you need them. You can totally stick with the default options, but if you want to customize it, then you can go into the pause menu and change it from here. Here's an item wheel that I've customized, and whenever I run out of potions or mega potions, I can craft more when I select my potions. The default wheel doesn't let you do this for some reason. I also changed the way I use the wheel by, instead of dragging and letting go of the option, I drag on the option and click on the right stick for me to use the item. I'm guessing for the mouse and keyboard users that it's more simple for you guys. During your hunts, your handler would have put items in the pouch for you to use. Simply by pressing left on the D-pad while you're on your mount, you can access the pouch. These items are very useful for the monster you're fighting. For example, when I'm fighting Nasira, our handler will give us antidotes because this monster inflicts poison. You can also keep most of these items when you complete your hunts, so she's basically giving us free items to keep. However, the items with this small icon will disappear after the hunt is complete. That's probably all I can think of for a guide to learning Wilds combat. In my opinion, combat here is more friendly to new players than previous titles. Or maybe it's because I have the experience to say it's easier. Obviously, I haven't gone into more depth with the weapons because each one has their own unique moves and mechanics that you should learn in a separate video. There's also armor to talk about, which obviously I'll cover that in another video. Be sure to give this video a like, subscribe if you want to see more tips and guides for Wilds, and I'll see you guys later.